A man wakes up in a bunker with low oxygen, unaware of what's happening, and must escape before time runs out. By today's Iron Dwarf. If you enjoy the videos, support the channel by liking, subscribing, and enabling notifications. It's free and really helps me grow. Let's get started. The story begins with a quote from Dylan Thomas that says, "Do not go gentle into that good night. Anger, hatred. The light goes out, then a mysterious place lights up." That's how we meet our protagonist, who wakes up with a severe headache and says he needs to stop drinking. Suddenly, he starts to smell something bad very close to him, and when he turns around, he finds the corpse of a rat right next to him. That's why he decides to sit up, and that's how he discovers he's inside a room that looks like a bunker, dark and without ventilation. The place is empty except for some lockers against one wall. His watch reads 9:32 a.m., so he tries to open the vault door but fails, making him upset. He starts saying that he's running late for work, and even though he shouts for help, he can't get anyone to hear him. Afterwards, he tries to make a call, but as expected, he doesn't have enough time. Suddenly, he hears a noise inside the locker that catches his attention, and he approaches it thinking that someone is playing a prank on him. So he starts looking everywhere, thinking there are some hidden cameras. As revenge, he pees on a wall to dirty the place. Minutes later, he laughs ironically. Then he gets the idea to go number 2, to dirty all the walls. He quickly changes his mind and shouts insults at his friends, still thinking they're behind the prank. Because of his anger at not knowing, he approaches the door to bang on it, trying to make a lot of noise. But again, this is useless. Then he starts banging on the locker with all his fury in every possible way without making any progress. The following day, the dead rat is crawling with maggots, while our protagonist remains locked up. A fly flies into his mouth as he yawns, and to make it worse, he breaks his cell phone by dropping it. With no other option, he decides to pee, but this time he uses his shoe as a container so he doesn't waste anything. Very thirsty, he forces himself to drink it. He's surprised because, given his dehydration, it tastes nearly the same as a light beer. At this point, he keeps yelling toward the door, as if the person in charge of this punishment were there. He hits the ceiling light and quickly finds and retrieves a key from it. Then he goes to the locker padlock and opens it in a matter of seconds. Then he's surprised because inside there are 2 oxygen tanks, along with some tools that could help him escape from the bunker. As a first attempt, he starts using a hammer and a chisel to break the huge vault door. And even though he tries his best, it's not enough. Then, he sets up the oxygen tanks with a blowtorch to try to activate the fire alarm. But this doesn't work either. The third option is to burn the big door for several minutes but cause no damage. Again, he gets angry, hits the locker hard, and breaks the fire prevention device. Because of everything he just did, he ends up completely exhausted, and that's when he remembers that he needs to save as much energy as possible in order to survive. He keeps repeating that he's not crazy, not dreaming, and not dead yet. He then realizes he's locked in a building with electricity but no water or sound. And right then he starts to hear a voice telling him that no one else will come for him because someone wants to see him dead. Somehow this motivates him to make a hole in the wall, but because of all the force he uses, he ends up hurting his eye. Accidentally, and ignoring the pain, he keeps going, determined to escape the bunker. Minutes later, he runs out of energy and realizes it'll take days before he can see what's on the other side. He motivates himself by reminding himself he'll get a cold beer when he leaves this place. The problem is that due to physical exhaustion, he loses his breath, so he heads toward the oxygen tank with great difficulty to try to recover. After inhaling briefly, he faints and falls almost immediately. When he wakes, he feels starving, so he has to eat some of the worms from the dead rat to survive. Making a big effort not to vomit, he pees in his shoe again to quench his thirst, but it doesn't taste as good as before. He works with renewed energy until he hits some beams in the wall, then uses the blowtorch to break them without hesitation. Fortunately, he melts some parts and continues hammering. This gives him more hope as he has made quick progress. But despite having all the motivation to continue, we see him fall asleep from exhaustion all of a sudden. Hours later, the protagonist uses his remaining strength to break through the wall and finally sees the other side. And, excited for having done it, he decides to go through the small hole. When he leaves, he's shocked to find himself at another bunker like the last, with a large closed vault door. The difference is that in this room, there is a lamp and a coffin, making all of this much more terrifying. He decides to approach and figure out what's happening, but before opening it, he grabs the chisel to defend himself. When he comes back, he opens the coffin. He finds an unconscious woman. His first thought is to touch her to check if she's dead, and when he does, he's amazed. The woman was only sleeping, but when she sees him, she screams in a strange language and tries to escape through the still locked door. That's why she must go through the hole to escape him. That's when our protagonist realizes this isn't just a game. Soon after, he tries to approach her, but she stays terrified. To help calm her, he chooses to remain in the new bunker. We see that despite everything, our protagonist feels a bit happy since he's no longer alone. After the woman throws the dead rat at him, he decides to rest in the coffin. As hours pass, day 3 of confinement starts, when the woman returns to her bunker with a hammer and grabs a chisel to attack our sleeping protagonist. But her real intention is to wake us up so that together they can break one of the walls in search of an exit. He lacks energy, and she keeps speaking another language. Using gestures, they communicate and begin working as a team. At first, the woman helps him by holding the chisel, but she's afraid of getting hurt. Their effort fails, so they switch places, but that doesn't work either, because she can't hammer with enough force, causing our protagonist to start mocking her in an ironic way. Later, the man works alone, and when he tires, the girl covers for him despite her exhaustion. Suddenly, he starts to remember the night before waking up in this bunker, although everything becomes blurry and he can't figure out how he got here. Meanwhile, he keeps considering theories. The girl hurts her hand accidentally, but he still helps her while analyzing the situation. So the woman gets upset and decides to go back to the other bunker to pee, but our protagonist chases her to avoid wasting liquid, so he lends her his shoe. At first, she isn't willing to do it. So he tries to explain to her that he's been locked up for 3 days without eating or drinking any liquid. The girl understands him and agrees, but only if he doesn't watch her do it. They argue briefly again, but eventually the woman urinates, letting the protagonist drink to quench his thirst. Next, the girl takes her turn, but she doesn't enjoy it as much. Then it's dinner time, so the man doesn't hesitate to eat a couple of worms, just like he did the last time, because, as he admits, they taste like chicken. The problem is that this doesn't satisfy his hunger, so he plans to eat the rat that's been dead in the bunker for days, although he gives up when the girl stops him just in time. After a while, we can understand what the woman says as she tells her story. She was supposed to be celebrating her wedding today, but somehow ended up here instead. And, with a bit of desperation, she asks if all of this is a punishment for having done something wrong in the past. She cries because she can't tell if she's still in Africa or has been taken to another continent. She's with a man who speaks a different language. Seeing her in this state, our protagonist tries to comfort her by singing a song his brother taught him. Afterward, the girl thanks him and supports him as he continues hammering the wall. This sweet moment ends when our protagonist accidentally hurts his hand. And in the midst of his pain, we see that the girl decides to take off the bed turban to make a bandage for his wound. Thanks to this, he realizes that they need to work as a team in order to survive, since both of them are getting weaker and weaker. From then on, they start working together. A few minutes later, we hear the door start to move, so both of them run to try to open it and shout for help, but no one answers. After some time, they return to continue breaking the wall. And after hammering a couple more times, they notice that the door lock is moving again, but this time, only the girl runs out. Since he was desperate, nothing else happened. There, our protagonist begins threatening everyone behind the macabre game, unsure what else to do. After a while, both of them continue with their work, and this time the man decides to keep hammering while the door keeps moving. They walk toward it, avoiding direct eye contact, reach it with their backs turned, and open the bunker door. The problem is there's just another identical room behind it, like the previous two, with the detail that instead of a locker or coffin, here there's the hole of a tomb door next to a tombstone. At first, both of them approach very carefully, and when they see that it's just an empty hole, they start to think that it's a grave for both of them. The girl tries to open the new door without success, and our protagonist decides it's time to dig, since breaking the walls didn't help at all. And maybe this is the only solution. With several gestures, they manage to agree on which direction to dig. After a few hours, the man nearly collapses, having lost his remaining strength. Does he regret not using the first day trapped to look for an escape? Now the only solution to regain his energy is by eating. And the first thing he thinks of is eating the girl, because maybe this is the key test to be able to get out of there. Luckily, our protagonist refuses and simply asks the girl to let him die. Luckily, she refuses and, with great effort, gets him out of the hole. The woman goes to the door to ask God why, then uses her tears to moisten the man's lips. Is fully dehydrated. She also takes his hand so he can feel her body, giving him a reason to fight to survive. She also undresses him, and somehow this helps him recover a little. The couple makes love, and afterwards, they are completely exhausted. At one point, the protagonist searches for something to cover the girl. Hours later, the bunker door moves again. When he realizes this, he decides to wake her up, telling her not to look directly in that direction so the lock doesn't stop. Then, she helps him walk and they both reach the door to finally leave the bunker. Outside, they find a spectacular landscape that looks like it's from another world, and they both smile because they're sure an incredible new life awaits them. This was Iron Door. Remember to like, comment which movies you'd like to see, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos.